We're back out here once again, and today we're talking about this guy right here, the good old Texas rig, one of the greatest fish catching tools of all time, and how this guy right here might actually be holding you back. Stick around, we're going to talk all about it. There we go, I got him. Ooh, that's a nice one. That's a nice one. I knew you were back here, buddy. Come here, you. And here is this video's featured comment. Congratulations! If you would like to have a chance to have your comment featured in an upcoming video, all you've got to do is leave a comment. And now, on with the video. Welcome back to Lowbrow Fishing, and today we're talking about this guy right here, the good old Texas rig, one of the most popular and certainly one of the most effective techniques bass fishing has ever seen. And they may be holding you back. Why? Well, when you think of a Texas rig, what comes to mind? Certainly, how you rig a stick bait or a Senko on an EWG or a worm hook, a creature bait, what have you, and you pair it with a bullet weight, 1/4 ounce, 1/8 ounce, or whatever. Most people will say that's a standard Texas rig setup, but that's actually not the case. See, Texas rigging does not refer to the type of bait, the type of hook, or even if you're using a weight. All a Texas rig is how you have that bait rigged on that hook. Everything else doesn't matter. And that stems from the early days of Texas rig bass fishing in the 1960s. See, back in the early 1960s, people in Texas, in southern Texas, they would buy these pre-rigged cream scoundrels. I'm sure you've seen them. They've got the beads and the props on them, and they have the hooks and the weedless hooks put in them. And people would buy these, and they would disassemble them and take just the worm and a regular old hook, because that's all there was back then. There were no dedicated, specialized hooks for Texas rigging. They had O'Shaughnessy hooks, they had bait hooks, they had regular hooks. And they were taking these and they had figured out how to rig those worms weedlessly. And they were catching so many fish that they actually were writing letters to the cream company asking, hey, can we just have the worms without all the rigging? And it became such a thing that cream actually sent a representative down to where these people were using this technique and saw what they were doing. And Texas rig bass fishing was officially born. It caught on like wildfire, and it totally changed how people fished their soft plastics. Personally, it changed how I fished forever. When I had an older gentleman show me what a Texas rig bait was when I was a teenager, I changed it completely, and I went from night to day, and I've never looked back. But when we're talking about Texas rigging, again, a lot of guys just don't get all the nuances of it. And there are quite a few nuances. And if you explore all of those, well, then you can break that rut. As an example, let's talk about flukes, right? Soft plastic jerkbaits like this caffeine shad. You guys have seen me talk about these, I can't tell you how many times. They are a great, effective bait, especially whenever those bass are finicky. You've got calm conditions, you've got clear conditions, and sometimes even some chop and some mud. These can be really effective in a lot of different conditions. And I've talked about rigging them on a 5/0 EWG hook. Now, why am I rigging them on this hook? Well, it's not because I want the biggest hook available. And that's the failing that we run into. You get guys who take these great big hooks and something like this little Fluke Junior, and they're rigging these tiny baits on these ginormous hooks. And it totally defeats the purpose. I could use a smaller hook and still catch the fish. Bass have big mouths, and they are vacuum feeders. They inhale. So getting the hook in the bass's mouth is not going to be the problem. So why do I use this hook? This is my weight source whenever I'm using a weightless presentation. This is what I use to control the depth and the action of this in the water. If I feel like I need a little bit less, then I will downsize that hook to a 4/0, even a 3/0. But if I feel like I need to get a little bit deeper, I'll actually go up to a 6/0 hook. Doing that can be such an effective way to get more bites. It totally and radically changes the presentation of how this bait looks in the water. And it's something that I don't see many anglers doing at all. I'm going backwards. You should perfectly understand why you're going backwards. You should perfectly understand why you're going backwards. I got him. Not a bad one either. All right, come here, buddy. Come here, little buddy, on that white zoom trick worm. That's what he wanted. Slack water. We went with something more subtle in those currents, and we ended up catching a nice £1.25 bass. Beautiful little fish. Thank you so much, buddy. Appreciate that. All right, there he went. Let's go catch some more. So that's mainly why there are so many variations of the different types of hooks. Now you guys know this guy right here, a light wire 1/0 EWG hook. You guys have seen me use this a million times right here on the good old Waco rig. And a Waco rig is just a type of Texas rigging. I do it in such a way to mimic a wacky rig because I make it belly weighted and it catches fish that way. It works differently in the water than a wacky rig. It works a little bit more like a fluke does, but it's got that wacky rig fall. We've talked about it a million times, but I Texas rig it because I wanted a wacky rig that was weedless. And we don't even have to stop there. There are so many different ways that we can rig a Texas rig. The variations are only limited by your imagination. I like to do something that one of the subscribers called a Mardi Gras rig, right? You see where I've got the bullet weight, I keep it pegged a little bit, but not all the way down. And there's a couple of beads, you know, and that gives that clack, that gives that a little bit extra noise. It's great for murkier water. It's great for cloudier days. It's great whenever you just want to attract a bit more attention to your bait. This is what I was using the last time I was out on the water. Technically, that's still a Texas rig presentation because I was able to comb through the thick vegetation with it. So it doesn't matter, right? You can take these huge 4 and 5/0 worm hooks and you might be rigging them in the wrong situation. Sometimes paring it down with a smaller 2 or 1/0 worm hook might be just the ticket. Because what that does is, especially if you're rigging it weightless, if you're rigging it on a more finesse style presentation, it can drastically alter not only how that bait floats or sinks in the water or even suspends, but it can drastically alter the action of that bait in the water. I want to fish this pocket really pretty thoroughly. I want to fish this pocket pretty thoroughly. There we go, I got him. Ooh, that's a nice one. That's a nice one. I knew you were back here, buddy. Come here, you. Ooh, that is a really nice one. And you were not going anywhere. I knew I saw you back here. I had you good. I had you really good. Come on now. Let go of my fluke. There we go. Well, you weren't coming out. You are north of 2 pounds. You are a pretty good sized bass. So let's go ahead and get a weight on you. We're going to get a picture with you. It's just like cheating, kids. I'm telling you what, it is just like cheating. If I can get you through there. All right. 1.87. Everybody see that? 1.87. Beautiful fish. I knew he was right at about 2 pounds. This is a gorgeous, nice fish. Absolutely beautiful. Absolutely gorgeous. All right. Beautiful, beautiful 2-pound bass. Thank you so much for playing, biting that weightless fluke. All right, let's go catch another one. Especially if you're using something smaller, like this little Guggen Kraken crawl. I've got a rage crawl right here, and you can see just how much bigger this is over this. And a lot of times I might want to use something smaller, especially if those bass aren't as active, especially if they're, being a little bit more lethargic. You can see this rage crawl has got that slot in there, and that's for helping you rig it weedlessly with an EWG. This doesn't have such a slot, but I can still pare it down. And I can even use an O'Shaughnessy hook with it. Doesn't stop there. You can Texas rig your Ned baits. You can Texas rig your drop shot baits. And that opens up an entirely different world of possibilities to you. So get out of that rut. Break away from just the 1/4 ounce, 8 ounce, whatever, bullet weights, and an EWG hook, the biggest honking EWG hook that you can find. I'm telling you, whenever you're rigging those baits in such a manner, whenever you're rigging those baits in such a way, it is truly and genuinely holding you back. So there you have it, the good old Texas rig, one of the absolute best fish catching tools we have available to us. But if you don't unlock all the nuances, well, you just end up holding yourself back and leaving fish in the water that you could be catching. Thanks for watching Lowbrow Fishing. We'll catch you in the next one.